Hey friends, it's Missy again. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm back with a new layout for the Shimmerz education team. And don't forget, if you would like to get a free paint in your next order, make sure you mention my name in the comments section over at shimmerzpaintstore.com. So for this layout, it's going to be kind of what I would call a stash dive. And I pulled out the Moonstruck collection from Pink Paisley. I haven't used it in a very long time. And I only have a couple things. I have the 6x6 paper pad, I have the rub-ons, and I have the die cuts. And I was really inspired by the navy blues and the deep reddish pinks and some of the coral colors. And so I'm gonna just kind of make that color scheme on this white cardstock. And I don't have a picture chosen yet, so I'm just gonna go for it and start my background and worry about the picture later. So this is thick, smooth white cardstock from Basil. I think it's the double thick white. And this is just clear gesso. I'm smudging it down pretty much over the whole thing with a palette knife. And I do let that dry off camera. So I'm going to start with one of the brand new colors that Shimmerz just released a few weeks ago. And this is a Coloringz called Ahoy Matey. And it does not have any shimmer, but it is a very pretty navy blue. And I'm going to mix it with Vibez Blue Jeans, which is a shimmery periwinkle color. And I'm using the packaging technique here. I just sprayed it right onto it, flipped it over, and smudge it down. It's very, very fun and easy technique. And it's a fun way to get a very messy, watercolory, splotchy look if that's something that you like. It's one of my favorite techniques and I love doing it. So I'm going to start with the navy and the periwinkle color here and just kind of work on this background. And I'm going to make sure that I wipe all that color off the plastic before I move on to my next color. Now this color is one of my favorite pinks and it is a Creameez and it's called One Hot Mama. And it is such a pretty deep pink, and the Creameez have kind of a satiny finish when they are dry. Now you can see here how when I add water on my brush and start to smudge around, the paint is not 100% dry because I put it on the gesso, and the gesso sort of acts as a barrier between the paint and the paper, and it allows me to move the paint around and it doesn't just soak right through onto the paper. This is a coral color that I'm using, and it's a Creameez also, and it's called Grapefruit. And then I'm going to mix and match with one of the original Shimmerz paints. Well, but one of the, not brand new, but a newer color. It's called Moulin Rouge, and it is a very, very shimmery light pink color. It's really pretty, and it mixes really well with that coral color. So I like this color scheme. I don't use navy blue a whole lot, so it was fun to kind of challenge myself to go with a darker blue, because I tend to gravitate toward the bright summer blues like aqua and turquoise and teal. So this is a different blue for me, but I think it's really pretty mixed with this bright pink and the coral. So I'm just going to keep working here. I'm going to add a little bit more of the grapefruit and see what happens next. So I took some time and I found this really sweet picture of Paige. Obviously she was asleep, but I love how she had her little hand on her face, and she's such an active kid. She looks totally different when she's asleep, and so I always go and check on her every night before I go to sleep, and I never know what position she's going to be laying in. Sometimes, usually her whole entire head is covered up, but in this case she was just perfectly asleep, looking so cute on her pillow on her side, so I had to take a picture. So that's what I'm going to scrap, and I printed it in black and white because it was dark in her room, and I used my phone, and you know, when the flash goes off, it's all, since it's so dark, it's kind of a bad photo. But I'm just using some 6x6 papers as layers behind the picture, as well as some tissue paper, and then I'm going to incorporate this cut file. And this is one of Paige Evans' Dreamcatcher cut files. I think it's called Half Dreamcatcher, and I wanted it to have a little bit of color, so I pulled out my Inklingz Minor 49er, and I'm just going to give a messy light coat to it here to start, and actually spilled some of the paint. And that is precious gold right there. So I'm going to soak it all up and make sure I don't waste any of it. It's like the worst feeling ever is when you spill your paint, or you knock your mist over, and you know, that stuff just does not grow on trees. And so when you spill it and it gets wasted, it's like, ugh, awful. Anyway, so this is going to sort of be my theme, dreams and sleep, and I thought the dream catcher was cute. I've never really used a dream catcher before. I think maybe on one other layout. I'm never really quite sure how to use them appropriately, and so this may not even really have anything to do with sleeping. I'm not quite sure, but I like the way it looked, and I'm going to wind up using it. And I'm going to use a little bit of that moon paper as a layer, and then a little bit of this paper here with the orangey coral and the light pink. And this is something fun and easy that you could do with it if you only have a 6x6 paper pad, is they make great layering pieces. They also make great small pieces to back cut files with. And when I went through the ephemera pack for this collection, I saw that word Dreamy, and then I was looking through my photos and I saw the picture of her asleep, and I thought, okay, we're gonna go with a sleep/dream type of theme, and it worked out great, I think. And I like the way the cut file kind of softens up the background, because you know, when you don't have anything on the background and you just have all that color there, it's very bold, and the cut file sort of softens it up. But one thing I noticed when I did add the cut file is that the bottom half of the white cardstock was just kind of white and bare, and so I decided to bring down some of the color toward the bottom of the layout, and I go back to that pink and the One Hot Mama and the grapefruit, and just kind of do a little bit of mixing and matching, and use my brush. I'm going to use my finger here in a minute just to kind of smudge, and I like the way this looks peeking through and around the cut file. And usually, you know, one of my favorite things to do with cut files is back it with pattern paper, but this dream catcher is very intricate, and there are a ton of little bits and pieces cut out, so I just decided to leave it as is and let the background show through it. So I go back to the two blue colors that I'm using. I want to add a little bit more of that color down in the bottom as well. And so I just start off with some splatters, and then I am going to add a little bit of the color here and there. I didn't want to overpower the pinks and the corals, so I just add a very, very little amount and then use my finger to kind of smudge it around. Because the big chunk of blue up at the top, most of that is going to get covered up with the cut file and my photo. You will be able to see it peeking. I know I say peeking out a lot, but that's just kind of how I see it. I see things peeking out from behind things, and sometimes you have to do a lot of stuff on your background just to get a little bit to show, and I think that's just the nature of doing this kind of layout, is you think you're doing too much, but then you lay everything back on top of it and most of it's covered up. And so I always tend to go big with my backgrounds because I know a lot of it is going to be covered. And you don't have to cover it. It just depends on, you know, the look you're going for and what you're doing. Now, I did pull out some stamps. These are some Shimmerz stamps that you can buy over at shimmerzpaintstore.com. And this is the Bed of Roses stamp set. And I'm only going to use a couple of the leaf clusters. And I pulled out one of my gold ink pads because I wanted these to be kind of subtle, yet I wanted them to kind of show in between and around the two fussy cut leaf clusters that I cut from 6x6 paper. And I like the pop of that aqua green color that those leaves give because I did not add any of that color to the background. Now this is just some adhesive foam I'm going to add behind the photo to kind of add some dimension and raise it up off the page. And I'm going to start to glue things together here. One of my things is when I'm making a background like this, I try to bring everything back and stick it on top and see what it looks like, and then I take it off and add more to the background and then put it all back. And I think that's just the best way to see how your page is going to look and see if you've got enough mixed media or if you need to add more. Just kind of a little test to see what it looks like you know, at certain points when you're making it. And I'm just kind of winging the stamps here. They're just subtle little pops of gold. I didn't want them to be dark. I didn't want it to do, you know, like a black color or navy blue. I just wanted them to be nice and soft. And I did want more pops of gold since I did add that minor 49er to the cut file. Now I don't wind up using this rub-on. I thought I might want another pop of the aqua color up at the top, and I can't even remember what this says. It says something about dreams, but you couldn't really see it, and I felt like it was just too forced. I didn't like the way it looked. I wanted this to kind of look dreamy and soft, and I don't know, that little part at the top there, just, I'm going to wind up taking that off. I try to use it in a couple of places, but it goes back into my stash. Now, I did kind of use several of the rub-ons, and I was very pleasantly surprised that they rubbed on like new. They were great. And I'm sure you've all experienced rub-ons that dry out really fast, and then you go to rub them on, and they don't work. So I was happy that I've had these for a few years, and they still rubbed on great. So that was nice. And so I added that pink flower over to the right. And then there are a lot of butterflies in this collection as well. So I'm going to make those work here in a little bit. But I felt like I needed a pop of that dark bright pink over on the left side since I added that flower over on the right. And so I'm going to do that with thread. And I know I say that a lot, but thread is a great way to add pops of color in little areas, especially if you don't have another embellishment in that particular color. I like to do, you know, not every time, but a lot of the times I like to do the visual triangle. And that means I have 3 points of that hot pink color right there. You can kind of see the thread on the left, the thread down beneath the picture, and then the flower on the right. So it kind of creates this triangle of 3 points of that color. And so I didn't have 2 other things in that hot pink color. So the thread is great. You know, it's cheap, it's easy to use, it's easy to attach, and it looks messy and crazy, just like my pages do. So it's one of my favorite things. So here's where I'm going to add in some of the butterflies. I'm going to use this teal one and then a couple of these light pinky peach ones. And I thought about using some more of the rub-on ones, but I didn't want to go overboard. Now this little strip it's actually a strip of the different phases of the moon, little tiny circles, and they're all different colors. And I'm going to rub them all on in just different places all over the layout. And it's just going to look like splatters or little enamel dots. But yeah, they're just rub-on circles. I thought, let's just use them up. So I go back to the minor 49er and add another coat in not the entire thing, but just kind of messy areas here, just kind of splotching it down in a little bit, just to make it look a little more shimmery and a little more gold. And I love how that looks. This is a very beautiful gold color. And the more you let the water sit in the pot, the thicker it gets. And so that's definitely my word of advice on the Inklingz and the Creameez. The longer you let the water sit, the thicker that paint is going to get, and the more bold the color is going to get. This is one of my little Tim Holtz phrase sticker books from my stash, and I found a couple of quotes about dreams, and yeah, I think they're both about dreams. I use one at the top, and then I'm going to cut this one up and kind of use it over on the right. I like the white on white, and it just kind of looks like I typed it on there, because I do not have a typewriter. I want one, but I don't have one. So I like how that looks. And then I'm going to rub on this little rose here on the corner of it. When the rub-ons are working great, I just want to rub everything on the sheet, but I didn't. You know how that goes. When things are rolling, you're just like, I love how these are working. I want to use them all. But I contain myself. I did add 3 little gold heart rub-ons in 3 different places, and they're very tiny, so they're not even, you know, like a big statement. They're just little details. And one of the last things I'm going to do is come in with my ruler, and I realize that those stickers are crooked, so I'm going to straighten those up, and then I'm going to add some lines with my pencil, and then come in with my journaling, and I believe that's going to wrap it up. Yep, that's the final layout. I love how this turned out. think the color scheme is really pretty. Even though you can't really see a lot of the navy blue, I promise it is there in just small increments. And I love how the cut file looks with the gold on it. There you can see up close the shimmery factor, which I love. And I love mixing and matching shimmery shimmers with flat color shimmers, because you can get the greatest colors and everything just works together so nicely, and it always turns out very pretty. I did add some stitching to create some butterfly trails there with white thread. So let me know if you have any questions about anything. I'll list all of the colors that I used below. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.